Do you think, should delegates, people going to these COP functions, should they be required to publish genuine assessments of their carbon footprints, as they call them?
Well, very much so. I mean, the only ones who could go to a COP conference would be those who could walk on water. And the delegates at the COP conference, I think, feel that they have the powers of that man who walked on water. Their carbon footprints are enormous, and these people are absolute tattled hypocrites. Here they are flying in private jets and in commercial jets, using someone else's money and flying to tell us that we should stop flying, we should stop emitting. And I come back to the original point. No one has ever shown that human emissions of carbon dioxide drive global warming. So the whole business is built on a house of cards. It's a furphy. And until someone can show me that human emissions drive global warming, I think we have to say that this is the biggest case of scientific fraud we've ever seen in the history of time. Now, I've asked many scientists, including former chief scientists, just please give me half a dozen scientific papers that demonstrate to me that human emissions drive global warming. They can't do it. What they do is they abuse me, but they can't give me the primary data. I'm not interested in opinions. I'm not interested in people's ideology. I just want the data. And once I have data, then I can be comfortable with conclusions, which I will change with more data, but I can be comfortable with the conclusions. And the conclusions that I have drawn from the lack of data is that we have no demonstration that human emissions of carbon dioxide drive global warming. And if we did, you'd have to show that the other emissions, the natural emissions, which are 97% of the total, don't drive global warming. So the whole game's checkmate before you start it. This is the biggest scam we've seen for a very long period of time. And for a country like Australia to deindustrialise, to get rid of fossil fuels, that would mean we would get rid of our export industry of coal. That would mean we'd get rid of exporting iron ore. Where would this country be economically without coal and iron ore? That would mean that we would destroy agriculture. We wouldn't have enough food to feed the 25 million people in this country. We feed 80 million with the potential of feeding 200 million. But we are totally log-jammed with red tape, green tape, black tape, and now blue tape from the UN. And this is economically disastrous. So if we want to save the nation, the best thing to do is to save us from these ratbag policies destroying the industry of Australia.
Have you been following what's been happening in the Netherlands, in Holland, where I was really surprised to realise is such a major exporter of food? How could a small country like Holland be such a major exporter? Has it got something to do with the fertiliser you mentioned?
Oh, yes. It's got something to do with the soils, which are very young soils, and most of the Netherlands productive area is underwater. And those young soils are sediments which were deposited very, very recently, and I'm talking about in the last 15,000 years. And these soils, unlike Australian soils, which have been leached for hundreds of millions of years, have the nutrients. The one nutrient they don't have is nitrogen, and that we add using urea or using ammonium nitrate. The Netherlands is a prime example of what you can do to feed people if you use artificial fertilisers in your agriculture. And I watch very carefully what's happening politically in the Netherlands and also the UK and also Argentina and many other places. And I think the average person now has realised that this is probably a scam. Some people are waking up to it and they're expressing that in their vote. And I think in this country, we've had the pleasure of the voice. And all of a sudden, people have realised that you can speak out. There is no shame in expressing your opinion. You can do that in the privacy of the ballot box. And by expressing your opinion, no matter how much propaganda gets thrown at you, governments cannot change that. So I think we're seeing a period of change on the planet, in the Western world, and I think it's a positive change.